don't have my agenda up yet, Dr. McNeil. What are we starting with? Oh, yes. Project Lead the Way. Mr. Spears, are you here ready to go? Awesome. Why don't you take the floor?
I'll lead
Yes.
the way. About the project.
So Mr. Spears is going to talk with us about our third in a series of Project Lead the Way courses. We have our Intro to Engineering, our Principles of Engineering, both honors level courses, and now we are requesting the Computer Integrated Manufacturing course.
Let's see if this works. Yes. Well, thank you, Dr. McNeil. Yes, this is the third of what will ultimately be 4 primary content plus a 5th capstone course in the series to fully implement Project Lead the Way here in Downingtown. Conducted some research feedback from various schools that have implemented the program, and for a number of reasons, we'd like to ask that you approve of Computer Integrated Manufacturing as our third course. Feedback was very positive. The CIM, Computer Integrated Manufacturing course, has been the most popular course in other districts that have implemented in the Project Lead the Way series. The nature of the course will allow students to fully implement design ideas and actually prototype and apply their design concepts in the course, which feedback from our own students said is something that was lacking and that they're really looking forward to. So this will fill a hole there. It also will create a parallel course to what we have at the STEM Academy in terms of equipment. That's primarily the reason for the cost, the high cost of the course, is the rapid prototyping equipment that is utilized in the course. But will basically allow students at East and West, our comprehensive schools, to have a full engineering experience, design prototyping experience, as students at the STEM Academy have as well.
Mrs. Hickey, if you would be kind enough to just scroll down so that we could see the equipment. Thank you.
Do we have questions or comments for Mr. Spears? Ms. Craig?
About how many kids do we have enrolled in the 2 schools in any of the Project Lead the Way? You're thinking that there's going to be students who want to take a third Project Lead the Way course? Is this coming after they take those first 2?
Yes, it's intended to be taken after those first 2 courses. We have 5 full sections at East, I believe 4 at West currently. We're hoping that this will cause an increase in enrollment there. The equipment itself, of course, is not reserved specifically for the use of that one course, but rather can be used by the traditional technology education courses, as well as a resource for the school in general, too. So it's not, as all of the Project Lead the Way equipment purchases, since it is free curriculum, those are cross-platform. They're not dedicated solely to that curriculum or solely for the use of that course. They're quite flexible.
But in order to take this course, they have to take the other 2 first?
That's what's recommended by Project Lead the Way. I mean, if I were to have my choice, I would love to open every course, out of sequence, unless it's clearly level 2 or required. That's how it's recommended, so that students are trained in 3D modeling programs that they need to know in order to utilize the equipment. But this equipment can be used by the conventional courses as well. So it's not as though it were a capital investment that would be sitting there waiting for a number of years for larger and larger enrollment to occur that could be utilized by the school immediately.
But really, in order to take this course, a student has to start Project Lead the Way as a sophomore. Am I thinking correctly, in order to get this by senior year?
They can take this as a junior.
But if it's the third course in this series?
It can be used as a second course in the series. I'm sorry, when Dr. McNeil and I said the third course, it's the third Project Lead the Way course. But you can take this course after taking either Intro to Engineering or Principles of Engineering,
Okay.
so that it could be taken earlier.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Yes.
For Project Lead the Way, you offer courses in the middle school, right?
Yes, we do have Project Lead the Way courses, although the courses are primarily designed, the rigorous nature of the course is primarily designed as a high school program. The middle school program is an introductory structure that utilizes programs. The 3D modeling program is the same as the high school, as well as the introduction to robotics and mechanical design. It's also utilized at the high school. So it's our introductory course to it. So, but they're not sequentially linked as they would. The high school level program does offer college credit when we're fully implemented, so it's the Project Lead the Way as we utilize it in middle school is open to every student, and it's a mandatory course, so it has to be more flexible as a result, whereas at the high school it's an honors level.
So just on a side note, have you thought about offering maybe the Project Lead the Way, the first course that you would take? Could you offer that in middle school? For those that want to be more challenged?
I think that it would
Be too much.
be too much.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I have just kind of a general question. I guess we haven't had this all in place long enough to really see whether children coming who experience Project Lead the Way in the middle school are moving into it as well in high school. Have we? I'm not remembering the sequencing and the timing of everything.
We would see the full impact of that occur in the following year.
In the next school year?
In the next school year, yes. Only not every student in the middle level has had Project Lead the Way yet, just because of the way that the schedule works.
I'm just curious, if you kind of in line with what Mr. Simmons was thinking, but wondering whether we're generating interest at the middle level, but follows them in the high school. I guess that'll be something to track as we move along.
Definitely.
All right, are we okay with moving this forward? All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Spears. And next up, we have another dual enrollment.
Yes, we're requesting the approval of a contract with Widener University to offer dual enrollment English courses for seniors at both East and West campuses. The contract that Curriculum Council saw as part of the scrolling agenda, we did share that with our solicitor, Mr. Donatelli. He did have a suggestion for a change which Widener has made and which I will provide the board for their perusal and signature. It just was not available for the agenda at this time. I'd also like to, if I might, commend Alana Scheit, Carol Warren, and Principal Hurley for taking the initiative on this very creative dual enrollment offering. I believe Alana is going to share some details of the courses with us. Alana?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have it. Thanks. In looking at the shift from Westchester University to Widener University, we have several benefits that are phenomenal and I hope will increase enrollment twofold, if I may dream big. The first is that the professors would be Downingtown teachers. Rather than having a professor coming in from Widener to do the instruction, it would be in-house, and the teachers are already interested. We have 2 from each of the high schools, East and West. They are in the application process. They've submitted their resumes, and the dean would do an interview if this is approved as an option. They apply to be made adjuncts, and they are paid in their salary. It's already covered by what their regular teaching schedule is. It's not an additional course. It's not an additional restriction on money from the district, and there is no outlay of cost from Widener in that sense. They don't have to pay a professor to come to us. So having it being offered, oh, thank you, Carol Warren, welcome.
That's my timing. I truly have to say that a student stopped me on the way out. I said, I'm really going to an important meeting that's not more important than me, and you know what? I had to agree with that. So here we are.
So having a teacher on our current staff be the professor in residence, as it were, we can schedule the course any time of day that makes sense for the current offerings. So if a kid is, we have unfortunately a variety of kids who can't take this university course in period 3 the way that it's scheduled because they have allied health in the morning. So this allows us to have more flexibility in that kind of, if something like that were to come up. We can also offer it based on appropriate enrollment. We don't have to be subjected to if they have the ability to staff it or not. It's all in the house, which obviously makes us very happy. Next slide, please. The monetary gains for our students are phenomenal. The difference between paying Widener $400 for 6 college credits versus $2,000, which is what they were paying for Westchester, because they had to include payment to a professor. I mean, who could think of a better deal for 6 college credits than $400 and get it actually approved would be amazing. That price, plus the fact that it's a new name and it's offered when we can push it into our schedule, really will hopefully stimulate enrollment. It would be an invigoration into the program. So then more kids would try taking a college course and then think, I could be successful in college. Maybe it's reaching the kids who we couldn't reach before because of monetary problems. Maybe it's, there are so many scenarios, but all of them end up in hooray. And at the bottom, which is one of the cool things, there's no loss in value. It's not as if Westchester has a different status than Widener. They have the same status, so their credits transfer in the same way. So there is, well, all wins. And the next slide, if I could. The 2 courses themselves, the fall would be composition and critical thought, which talks about rhetoric, talks about grammatical principles, using analysis on syntax, punctuation, diction, author's purpose of all those things, a variety of exposition and argumentation, both reading and analysis, looking at primary and secondary sources, and then doing synthesis writing for those things. And then the second half of the year is the literature and critical thinking, the literary genres conversation, which is a compilation of fiction, drama, poetry, all analytical conversations about literature. Both sections are writing enriched, so they have very high expectations, but we have no doubt that our students are capable of it because they're fantastic. And then, as Dr. McNeil mentioned, she has a contract for you. Are there any questions?
Yes, Mrs. Whitson.
I have a couple of questions. When it was with Westchester, you know, not all universities would take the Westchester credit. The Widener credits, will they be equivalent to Westchester, easier, harder to transfer to some colleges? I mean, I don't know how that works. With, I don't know, the quality of college or...
The answer to that, Barbara, is, you know, we don't have a guarantee. Certainly there are, within all of our state systems, including Penn State and Pitt, they do accept them, they accept them differently. For instance, Westchester accepts all credits, so they were accepting, like Delaware County, Westchester, they accept each other's credits, Widener, they're all interchangeable. Pitt accepts it as an elective credit. Some schools, for instance, the Ivy League, we haven't had a lot of luck with them accepting the credit. However, there's a tremendous advantage in terms of getting into a school of that caliber, proving that you've taken 6 credits of a high level, a collegiate course. You know, it's a pretty good guarantee that you can be successful there. So they look at it maybe not as a credit. Sometimes they get an elective credit. If they're not an English major, if they're a math major, they will sometimes take them. So we always tell the students if they have certain schools that they're very interested in, they can provide the syllabus, they can provide any information and to the admissions department and know before they sign up whether they will take the credit and how they will take it. We can't guarantee it, but the majority of schools accept the Ivy Leagues, and they do sometimes push back. And some of the, like Patriot League, you're talking more about your Bucknells, your Lehighs, your Villanovas, they'll take it as an elective.
So the Widener name is going to be the same as the Westchester
I
name?
think it's going to be comparable.
All right. And my next question is, I'm trying to figure out how to say this right. So a lot of the students took the college English because college class, the resume, and also they got a different type of writing, not the downtown 5-paragraph. They got a college writing experience, which is different. If we're having our own teachers teach writing, will they be teaching more creative writing? Am I saying this right?
You are doing a fine job asking that question, and luckily, I have an answer. Widener provides the syllabi. We implement, but it's Widener's materials, Widener's resources. They are saying this is what we need to have instructed for it to be this course. So So that's what we are doing.
So they follow what they believe is the best writing skills for this
Exactly.
class.
And Barbara, there'll be a pre-meeting with the dean of the English department with our faculty to, hone out some of those details so that, we are teaching their collegiate curriculum.
And my last comment is, we should look at this for other subject areas. Besides just English, but as you know.
So noted. Thank you very much. Any other questions? This is truly creative because for a number of years how we've struggled with Westchester at the last minute telling us that they can't provide a professor at one of the campuses, and so we have kids scrambling at the last minute to fill their schedules. So thank you so much for your work with this.
All right, our next one, Mr. Daney is already walking up to the podium. We're going to request approval for a new science course, natural disasters.
So as we recollect, Policy 217, our graduation requirements at East and West prompted a change to course offerings. We're now requiring biology for all 9th grade students, so therefore we needed to make changes to earth and space science courses. And Mr. Daney will give us the details.
In working with Dr. McNeil, Mr. Barker, Mr. Hurley, and our earth and space science teachers, as well as our other science teachers in the district, as we made the move to move biology into 9th grade, we felt it would be irresponsible as a science department and as a district to totally eliminate an earth and space offering. So within that, we came to a conclusion that we needed to combine the two earth and space courses that we have right now. We currently have an earth and space 1 and an earth and space 2. And within that combination, kind of tweak the lens of it a little bit to make it seem a little bit more appealing than just looking at some of the basic foundational pieces. So to really look at how this understanding of earth and space science is really driven to our understanding of these natural disasters. So what we'll need to be doing is really revisiting the curriculum as it's currently constructed for Earth and Space Science 2 to ensure that we have pulled in some of those foundational pieces from Earth and Space 1 that will no longer be offered, as well as then tweak the assessments so that it goes through the lens of the natural disasters. Question?
Is this a level 1 course, honors course?
This would be a level 1.
And would be open to sophomore students and students?
Yes, and as soon as there would be, the only prerequisite would be passing 9th grade biology, which is the prerequisite now for every science course.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Daney. I think we're going to move this forward. It means improving the course and eliminating the Earth and Space Science 1 and 2.
That's correct, Mrs. Smith. Yes.
I think that's okay to move forward, Dr. McNeil.
Thank you. Our next item, we request approval of STEM graduation requirements. We plan, and Dr. Reed will move this piece forward, to include STEM graduation requirements as a separate policy from the East and West graduation requirements. But just so that everyone is clear, the STEM credit or course requirements have been part of the STEM program of study. What we've done here with this document that you see on the screen is to compile all of those requirements into a single document, which will then appear as a policy amid the other board policies. So, Mr. Campbell, Dr. Reed, you have anything? Mr. Campbell?
No, just the difference. You see, when they attend the STEM Academy, they're obviously on track for a Downingtown High School diploma, but then they also have the opportunity to secure an International Baccalaureate diploma. And those requirements, which I'll talk a little bit about in just a few minutes, We have higher level and standard level in the junior and senior year. So they have to take a minimum of 3 HL, which are higher level, and 3 SL, which are standard level. In addition, they have to do a creativity action service of 150 hours, and they have to do a 4,000 word independent extended essay. So they have to do all those components. So that's why on the right side, the credits are a little bit higher than they would be just for a regular downtown high school diploma. But they all leave with that. Good.
You call, okay, under the first column, it's CAS, and it's 40 hours. Is that what we call it for East and West?
No.
Or are we calling it for
No.
East and West?
You call it a graduation project.
But it's the same, did we decide
No,
it's the same?
it's not the same.
Totally different.
But I thought we decided it's the same, no, it's not, I thought that we didn't decide that.
Well, it's the
The number of
acronym-
hours are the same.
The acronym, creativity, action, and service. There's 3 specific components I'll let you.
Okay, well,
cover.
so it's not the same thing as East and West, the 40 hours.
No, East and West have basically a 40-hour project. We have creativity action service. We lowered it to the number of hours, which is my understanding that the hours would be the same as far as that. But what clarifies, we're still gonna mimic what the 150 would be for a diploma, just for our school's sake.
All right, but I just misunderstood that.
That's okay. And a lot of it would be the same type of things that would work. We just call it something different.
Anyone else? We're okay to move this forward. I guess the next piece is the course offerings for STEM.
Yeah.
We'll right into that. This isn't really additions, right? It's just me.
No, there's some additions. We have, the IB defines courses as 6 different groups, 1 through 6. Group 1 is language A, which is your native language, which in our case would be English, and every student has to take that. Group 2 would be language B, which would be a modern world foreign language, which we offer the same ones as the rest of the district, minus Latin. Group 3 is, they call it humanities and social studies and sciences. We call it basically social studies because every student has to take the history in that 11th, 12th grade year. Group 4 is science, biochem, physics. Group 5 is math. And then group 6, we have electives. We have electives such as visual arts, music, second science. Many of our students, probably almost half of our students, select a second science. So half of them are taking either biochem or chem and physics or some combination of those. We have psychology, we have business management, we have environmental systems and societies, economics, and computer science that are all approved in the course catalog. But if you notice, all except for the sciences and the music and visual arts are at the standard level. This can cause a little bit of a problem for some of our students. Basically what happens is if you're not a music or an art student, and you're not going to take those courses, you're immediately driven to have to do one of the 3 sciences, which isn't a bad thing. However, based on the situation kids are in, they may have to go into an SL modern language or world language, I mean the standard level, because they may have only had a foreign language in 8th grade or 9th grade, so they don't make it to level 4, which prepares them for the higher level. So right away, one of their SLs is world language. The same thing can happen for math. Now, with Algebra 1 being in 8th grade, that'll change, but it won't change for a couple more years. So you have some students who don't make it to math analysis in 10th grade, so therefore they're not curriculum prepared to be in the HL 2 levels of calculus, unless they were to accelerate over the summertime. So there's 2 of the 3 SLs right away, and if they still want to be a diploma candidate, that means that they have to either go into HL history, HL English, or another science. Well, if you're not in the higher level math, HL physics is going to be really, really hard for you, and even chemistry to a certain extent. So what I'd like to do is, because I believe it'll help us maintain some students from that 10th to 11th grade, is I'd like to just offer the HL versions of those SL courses we already have. So what that means is after speaking with teachers and doing some research, these courses wouldn't cause extra sections. You can teach them simultaneous. So right now we have 30 students in IB Business Management at the SL level. What that would do is that would allow most of those, or some of those, to take that as their other HL And then in an area where they're not as strong, they could take an SL course, like a science or something along those lines. So what that would do is help them to be more successful in our building and help them to just be better off prepared. What I would like to add, though, is design technology, which links directly to our design engineering. Around our school right now, we're looking for a way to put the IB together with our STEM pathways so that they kind of marry those together. We have the sport exercise and health science, which will align very nicely to our biological and health science pathways. And we also have information technology in a global society, ITGS, which will match up very nicely to our iMedia, as well as our history course. So they're the courses, all the HLs would like to add in those last three. I don't know if they'll run. We're an 800-person school. But what I'm able to do is take everybody that has a collection and I pull them together. This year we were able to run economics and psychology. Last year, and business management. The seniors right now, the only elective they ran was psychology. So we were able to run more by offering more. So that's just what I'm asking. That's it. Good.
Questions or comments? Mrs. Graham?
Did you say that a teacher could be teaching a class that is made up of SL and HL students?
Yeah, our languages do it now.
They do that. So the requirements are just different, harder?
The requirements, an HL course is 240 hours, an SL course is 150 hours. So the assessments are a little bit different as well. There's more external, like an extra paper in May. There's an extra internal assessment, another component. An example would be for, let's take history, IB history, SL and HL. Because of a scheduling conflict, I had 2 SL students in an HL class last year. They do the SL curriculum, but the HL is an additional 90 hours focused in America, like the twist of the Americas. So that's where that focus comes from. But it's very doable in some courses. In some courses it's not, but the languages it is. That history one, it worked. So some of them do where curriculums are similar to an HL and SL.
So is there any extra professional development that has to go on for people?
No, they've all been trained. The only thing we'd have to do is for design tech, the sport one, and the ITGS, we don't have anybody trained in that. When you go to training, you go for SL or HL. They train you in the assessments and the curriculum. So we actually have people trained in economic psychology, business management. So it wouldn't be any additional except for those.
It is doable to do HS and SL math at the same time as well. It's just different requirements for certain topics and how deep the students have to go. But in everything, even with getting more students at 8th grade level 1, and they'll get to that math analysis, it doesn't mean they're going to be ready for higher level IB math in 11th grade.
We do it in high school too with our languages. You know, they'll put 4, 5, 6, and or AP on the letter.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mrs.
This
Graham?
is related. Do you, just off the top of your head, about what percentage of the seniors are going to graduate with the IB?
Oh, I have no idea. There's 85% of them are candidates still. But we don't know until I send everything into the IB. They go to moderators all around the world. Coming up in January, they'll start sending me emails and say, I need you to pack this up, send these 10 kids, or send all these to this address, to this person, just like this. And then in May, they take their assessments the whole month of May. Kids will probably sit for 30 hours over the course of May, each kid. And then we send all those back, and sometime in July we get back if they passed or if they got the diploma. And the diploma comes from each course. They'll get so many points, a 1 through 7, and they have to meet certain criteria, and it adds up to a certain score. And depending on your number of HLs and SLs, like some people have 4 HLs, so they have to score a little higher because of some of the internal numbers that you have to pull out. And then we'll be told normally what our percentage is. The percentage around the world is about 75%. In America, it's about 65 to 70% of students that are successful with it.
So they already get accepted to college, not knowing whether
Sure.
or not they've got.
Same thing with AP, it's no different.
But they'll all take the test.
They all take the test, yeah. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
You okay with moving these forward? Very exciting, all these high-level classes we're adding in all of our high schools. Thank you.
So the next item, we request approval of the reconfiguration of Downingtown Middle School and Lionville Middle School to grades 7 and 8 starting July 1, 2014, due to the opening of the 6th grade center. The purpose of this request is to allow the board minutes to reflect the board's approval of the reconfiguration for EDNA purposes, you know, the educational demographics, names, and addresses that need to reflect the configuration of grade levels for each school. In just a little bit, we will be having Mr. Indeglio, or Dr. Indeglio and Mr. Ross speak to specific changes.
We have Kevin moving this, it's kind of a procedural thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Seminole. Mrs. Hickey, if you could show the proposal for elementary math supplemental needs support. I would like to revise the motion that is on the agenda to read, request approval to add 29.75 hours per week of aid support or 15 hours of before-after school support provided by teachers to support mathematics instruction at each elementary school for the remainder of the 2013-14 school year for a total cost not to exceed $122,231.83. Upon conversation with principals, board members, and some teachers, it seems more prudent to look to a request for this support for the remainder of the school year and then evaluate the efficacy of that support in terms of, you know, is this working the way we're scheduling it? Is it indeed helping our students to achieve? Is it indeed providing the kinds of support that teachers are looking for to differentiate instruction for the various levels of students in their classrooms? This evaluation will take the form of a survey to classroom teachers of mathematics, whether they be general ed teachers, special ed teachers, and also elementary principals. So if Curriculum Council would like to have some discussion of this or any question about the revised motion, I welcome that.
The board talked about this rather extensively at our committee of the whole meeting last night, and but we wanted to bring this back to BCC so we could hear, you know, from the teachers if you feel like this is something that you're going to benefit from. We don't want it. We're concerned about the aids really truly being a support and not being something you feel like you have to train or that they're not going to necessarily give you the help that you really need. So we want. Or that's our understanding from hearing from the principals is that this should allow you to work with more challenged students and let the aides work with kids who are getting concepts a little bit easier. But you know, we welcome your thoughts and input. We want to make sure this is really something that's going to be a benefit. Yes.
Just to add on to that, I think the intent was primarily for grades 3 through 5, where the kids are experiencing the worst transition gaps this year. I think that was our intent, but I mean, it would be totally up to the principals and the teachers to decide where they can best use an aid
Right.
rather than.
Any of our teachers want to chime in on this?
We'd love to hear from you.
There was some suggestion last night that perhaps aides weren't the best way to go, that there might be another way. There was talk of substitute teachers. We're looking to the teachers to let us know what they think will be the most effective, so.
What was the basis for, I wasn't at the board meeting, for a substitute teacher versus an aide that you would have in your building every day that would, you know,
It was
report
just
to their schedule?
It was just what having a teacher in the classroom, hiring a substitute teacher as opposed to an aide. And that was, again, just a suggestion that was thrown out there.
I believe they deal with long-term stuff, so it would be
The same
person, not rotating person. And the idea, I think, again, all the other ideas of that would be a certified teacher.
Well, that's going to up your dollar.
Well, did we look at that at all, Dr. McNeil? Could we get a chance to know what this?
So Mrs. Standish is here. She was checking with that because the rate does change depending on the length of term of the substitute.
Okay.
Current per diem rate is about $124 a day per sub.
A day. Okay.
So, but if it's longer term, we do pay higher rates, so we would have to talk to STS about a rate for that position.
And what did come up, teachers, so you know, at the board meeting last evening was with the substitute teacher, the principals had some reservations about that because some of the buildings, everyone teaches math at the same time. So we might have fourth and fifth teaching math at the same time, so how would one person get to those teachers for support? So we were trying to think of other ideas that might be helpful, so if you do have.
Yeah, the two other points that were made was that with the aides, some buildings have aides that you could extend hours or move around. We're talking about hours, not specifically people, so it gives a little more flexibility. So that was the one thought. And the other discussion that I believe we agreed on is that the aides would need to be trained, have some professional development in the program so that you aren't, it's not an added burden on a teacher. Well, now I've got to teach the aide the concept before I can go help the other students. So that was also part of the.
So Mrs. Byrne and I spoke about training the aides, and what we thought the best route to take would be to get the aides together and train them in a couple of key concepts. For example, we talk about the number bonds and the bar modeling, and what are other concepts in this program that would be helpful for a support person in the classroom to know about, so that they would have a few activities that they could do in the grade level with children that the teacher might assign to them. Because we did hear from principals and teachers that time is limited for the teacher to meet with support personnel. So, a teacher doesn't have time when you're teaching your class to stop for 10 or 15 minutes and direct the aide to what they need to be doing. And if we're just hiring an aide for 1 hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, the aide won't be there at the 8:15 time when teachers might have some time, or at teachers' planning time, it might not work. So we just thought across the board, it might be helpful for us to train these aides. Kelly would do that, train them in specific concepts and activities that would be implemented in the program.
Principals, if you would like to.
Mrs. Egan has a comment. Yes, thank you.
I was just going to say that, I know that my class would benefit from an aide right now. I think we have really good aides at Beaver Creek, and if they got a little bit of the training, I don't know if it would be the same people or not, but would it be, I guess my question is, and I don't know if this is just how the principals would give the time hours out, would I get the aide for my whole math period? Because if I'm only getting an aide for 15 or 20 minutes, that wouldn't help me, I don't think. If the aide was there to hear the lesson, and then she would take the group, or help me with some of my learning support students while I'm instructing, keeping them on task and helping them along, and then it differs from day to day with the math program too. Sometimes you teach and then it's guided practice, and then you teach again and it's guided practice. So I was just wondering if that was discussed. Would we get the aide for the whole math period, or we don't know that yet?
So those details, Mrs. Egan, were being worked out by the principals. So taking this block of hours, the 29.75, what does that look like in your building? And then how would you allocate that aid time? And if we are focusing on the 3 grade levels where those transition gaps seem to be the greatest, then I'm not sure if what you're asking would be possible or not. That would be the principal who would need to speak with that, to that point.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes, this is great. How about 6th grade, 7th grade?
I think we're going to talk about that in our discussion.
Okay.
So middle level, and we will have a middle level update. Middle level does have the Math X class, which when we met with two of the teachers and Mr. Stango about the middle level math, the teacher's comment was that the Math X class was a lifesaver in terms of providing that additional support for the kids who needed more time. Now, that's not happening during the math class. The kids get an extra class, but it's looking for the middle level, we call it their Math RTII. That's what it's looking like for them, so that the kids have more time. But Karen is going to give us an update on math, and I'm not at middle level math, and I haven't spoken with her, so I'm not sure if she's going to get into those kinds of details or not.
Mrs. Hurd-Simmons.
We also heard last night that you're changing your professional development. Can you address that and anything else you're doing to address transitions?
Yes, absolutely. I believe Mrs. Byrne is going to give us an update on the elementary math program during our program information, and you will be covering that. Is that right, Mrs. Byrne?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, we haven't heard back from HMH as to the details, so.
Okay, all right, well, just let me address it globally. The plan is that every early dismissal Wednesday for the elementary folks from this point forward, starting on December 11th, will be devoted to Math in Focus professional development. In addition to, so that means that the math folks will not be part of the K-12 groups. They'll be working in grade levels on Math in Focus, specific professional development. In addition to that, we've planned 2 additional full-day professional development days for each grade level. The days are within a similar time frame, but they're not the same day because of substitute issues. So we want to bring the Math in Focus trainers in and have them follow up with the next steps in what the teachers need for professional development. So for example, one thing that we heard from a district that's currently implementing Math in Focus K-5 is that they have monthly professional development full day, and they focus on a chapter a month. And within that day, they take a look at assessment, they take a look at instruction, they take a look at gaps, they fill the gaps not only for the children who have content pieces missing, but also for teachers who might say, okay, well, in order to teach this concept, I also need to know 3 prior concepts, that they also help teachers with gaps that they might need to teach new concepts at their grade level. So we have spoken with Math in Focus generally about this. We need to make sure that the dates we've selected are dates that they can provide us. So Ms. Saxa is communicating with them about that. But what we absolutely are focused on doing is driving the professional development to meet the needs of our teachers and our students. So that is the plan moving forward for professional development. We also find that communication has been, well, I guess it's always difficult to be stellar in communication in a district our size, but we want to make sure that we are communicating regularly. So Mrs. Byrne is including Math in Focus updates for principals to include in their monthly newsletters, so she's sending that in a timely manner. We have, for this December meeting, been able to put into effect a request that came out of the parent university meetings, and that was to give parents access to the grade level prior materials. So teachers will work on December 11th to make that happen for parents and students. And we will communicate that. Mrs. Byrne will send a blast email to parents because we missed the December newsletter of the principals. We're going to send a blast email to let parents know we heard you and we are making this available to you. So those are a couple of things moving forward that will definitely make an impact in the implementation of the program.
Yes, Mrs. Green.
Could, just for clarification, so the Wednesday early dismissals are going to be with grade levels?
Yes.
And we'll be collaborating, talking about assessments and lesson plans and stuff like that? We're gonna be-
Exactly. So we just had a pre-meeting. We're going to meet after this meeting with the K-5 grade level leaders talking about what they have to do on Think Central to get those resources. We want to send a survey out to teachers to talk with them about how are you communicating with parents, how much retesting are you doing? That seems to be an issue that's coming up. And then the bulk of the time, about an hour and a half, we have devoted to the current chapter that most teachers are working on. Assessments have been a big thing. So we eliminated 2 or 3 items from a test that only had 12 items. So we want to put additional items into that test so that the children have sufficient opportunity to show proficiency. And from what I'm hearing from the teachers, they want items that they've instructed, that are the skill items, not so much the application items. So they're going to be working on that. They want to talk about what it looks like to give partial credit. People aren't quite sure, in some cases, what that looks like. We wanted to take a look at a retest, because moving forward, what had been happening is the child took a test, child took a retest, those 2 scores were averaged, so could be the child did better, but the average is still not a proficient score. Or you have a child who got an 81, wasn't allowed to retest, and the child who retested got higher than the kid who wasn't allowed. So moving forward, we're going to develop a common retest, which will be available to any student who wants to take the retest. And then what will happen is that the better score of the 2 will be the score that's entered into gradebook rather than the average. So those are the things that were set for December, and we're going to finalize that after this meeting.
Sounds great, thank you.
Seeing no other comments, I don't think. We okay with moving this forward? Very good. Thank you, and we hope this helps you. Mr. Case?
If I could just add a thank you to the board. I know that our district is very responsive. And when I say our district, that takes the face of administrators and board members especially, because this is a large sum of money. And I really feel that our teachers have been heard. We did eliminate leveling so that we have a heterogeneous group of students. Teachers are struggling with the range of levels in a single classroom, and the board did hear that and is providing some support for teachers. So thank you.
Mr. Case?
Thank you. About a year ago, we entered into an agreement with Atomic Learning. I promised after 1 year we'd come back and tell you how it's going. So what we did, just briefly, we have a report at the top here from Atomic Learning of the top locations using Atomic Learning, and you can see the STEM Academies using it extensively. Also, we see lots of use at Lineville Middle School thanks to Lois. She's really been, and this is kids using it. We have a lot of kids using Atomic Learning. So this continues to grow. It takes a while to kind of get into the organization. This year we're doing every Tech Wednesday starts off with an Atomic Learning activity. So every time we have a Connect Team event, the first thing they do is takes 5 to 7 minutes and just go find something on atomic learning to try to, get more awareness of the program. If you can scroll down a little bit, Marianne. I came up, out of all the data that I got up there, I just wanted to give you the top 40. This is the top 40 things that people are using atomic learning for currently. So iPods, lots of Office products, Google Docs, Moodle, Facebook, Photoshop. These are just some of the things that people are taking advantage of. That's teachers and students in atomic learning. Atomic learning, I think, is going to be really important for us, not only for this year, but when we make the transition to the new devices for teachers. It is highly likely that the new device that we would pick would run definitely run Office 2013, which is very, very different than Office 2007, and may run Windows 8. There's an extensive library of video instruction on both of those areas in atomic learning. And I see this as kind of a key element in our transition to whatever the new device is, whether it's a laptop, a hybrid, etc. So it's my recommendation that we keep atomic learning for the next year. We'll continue to raise awareness with teachers and students, and it's going to be a really, really good tool for us to have some training opportunities for everybody as we transition to the new device. For those of you who don't know, the Dell lease on all the laptops that you have in front of you ends in June. So we have to transition to a new device. We're looking at several options right now, but more than likely, it definitely will be Office 2013, and it may be Windows 8. So we want to take advantage of this great resource to provide training for teachers.
Can you remind us the cost of that renewal?
It's $24,000, and that includes every teacher, every student, and every parent for 1 year.
Can you include that in the proposal for the board,
But it
and
goes
also
to the-
what fund
It is.
and what fund is taken out?
Mm-hmm.
So how much was that amount, Mr. Case?
It's in the proposal.
You don't have
It's
that.
$24,000.
I don't have it on the agenda, that's what I'm asking,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How much of that pie was from elementary school? I didn't see any, or the other middle school?
Yeah. That's just a general report. There's like reams and reams of data. That was the top locations. So there are activities in the other schools. They just didn't make the top cut.
Okay.
Do you have numbers of users?
Numbers of users, I do, and it's a huge amount of data. But we have lots of, I think we have about 800 to 900 active student users, and we have various amounts of teacher users. But once again, this is a transition. We're trying to grow the use of the product. I can get as much detail as you want. I just try to make it simple for everybody to see.
Excuse me, Ricky. How do parents know about this? Is it something that we should be pushing out more to them?
Yeah, now that we've kind of raised the awareness of the staff, some teachers have made their students aware, so they're using it, and their parents are probably using it. But yes, that's our next step. Once we get more people aware of it here, we should be able to tell our parents that yes, you can just have your kid log on using the same username and password that they use every day, and then you have access to this resource.
And one last question. You mentioned the transition between our technologies in June. I would assume that's after the year ends.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Ray, has there ever been a thought to how our training, our present training system, especially moving to this new operating system, translates to the actual school buildings? One idea that's come from a number of people has been, could we have one person whose job part-time would be to be in an individual building, so that when you went to try to use one of these wonderful, that you could go to them if you didn't know how to use it. Right now, I know we get training videos, but when you actually go to use something or implement something, sometimes that's not sufficient. Has there ever been a look, instead of having multiple Connect team members who are actively teaching when you might need them, to actual technology person who could be in the building a couple hours a day?
I think we kind of had that in the past, and the district moved towards a more resource-based model. Having said that, we have a terrific pair of people at our service desk that would be glad to help you at any time in real time with those things. If you call Pam or Jackie, anybody that's talked to them, you know, they'll try to help you in any way they can in real time. So if you call 6101, if you have a question and you're at that implementation stage and you need to get over the hump, we offer that service at 6101.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, principals in the room, have you tried any of these? I'm intrigued by the fact that even though, you know, you have 900 students using it, we have 12,000 students. And it's the same thing with parents, and there are parents here today who didn't know about this, and they're pretty involved parents. So it goes back to, how do we do a better job of communicating these resources out there? Because, you know, you want to get the most bang for your buck. And
Totally agree.
$24,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but it does to me when it's only 900 students using it. So,
I would agree we need to do a better job of communicating about the resource.
and the number to call if you can't use that service. I mean, what about a student or a parent who's having trouble using it? How do they?
Yeah, we really can't offer support after hours for parents. I mean,
Well, what about a
it's
student in the library or the?
they can walk up to the librarian and the librarian can call 6101 and get that student help.
So we need the librarian to do that.
I would hope they do, but yeah.
Are we okay with moving this forward? Barbara?
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Case. And Ms. Saxon.
I have a dream that one day we will not have field trips come to
Well, we do have several field trips for your approval today. Three of them are one-time only, and one is for the bank. The first is rather exciting. We have a group of students who is invited to the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport on Wallops Island in Virginia. And that is because they have designed an experiment that is going up into space. And this is the launch of their project into space. Now, because this is NASA, we can't be sure of the date. Right now, it's a Saturday in December, but we'll just have to pray to the weather gods that that actually happens. If not, they may need to reschedule according to whatever NASA says. Oh, Tuesday. Oh, it got moved again, see, as we speak. So keep your fingers crossed, but it really is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So we're excited for these students and hope that you approve their trip to do this. The second is also a limited experience because it is an exhibit that's only available at the Franklin Institute for a short period of time, and that is for the world language Latin students to attend the Pompeii exhibit over at the Franklin Institute. It is related to their standards and will definitely fulfill some of their cultural and historical conceptual acquisition pieces of their curriculum. That one is in February, and as I said, it's a limited time, so it's a one-time only trip. The next trip is also one that we are sort of lucky to be a part of. One of our students happens to have an uncle who works for the Pentagon, or at the Pentagon, and is able to get a special tour. I don't know if they have to swear to secrecy or anything like that, but we are happy that they're able to do it. Now, this one is shorter notice than we usually take for non-bank trips, but the absolute last possible date that they offered for this particular tour is very quickly, December 9th. So we are taking this one-time only request as a short notice because we did not know about it until now, and this is sort of a use it or lose it opportunity. And so it will be our AP government students who are attending this, and part of that is addressed in their standards. They're hoping to understand the role of federal bureaucracy and to help to analyze the tools. I'm sure one trip will do that, right? Yes. They will be writing a paper on it as well, if anyone cares to read those. So we're excited that they'll, we hope, get a chance to do that. And then finally, we have, this actually, the date is a misprint in here. It should say 4/25 instead of 5/25. I apologize for that. The STEM, science and engineering students are going to, are asking to be able to travel to the U.S. Science and Engineering Festival. There's also a pre-conference part of that that's called STEMX. And there they'll be able to meet with and hear from top scientists and engineers from around the country, and specifically how they relate to their field. So this is a trip to Washington, D.C. for that specific conference.
It's just great, it's not limited to school, Barbara. It's great.
She said STEM today.
I know, but it doesn't say STEM on the, go ahead, ask your question.
I was just asking for the science and engineering, just hearing all the Project Lead the Way and all the science science focused students we have at all of our schools. Wouldn't that be great to pull in those interested students too for that?
At the comprehensive high schools?
Yeah.
Yes, I can look into that for you. I will talk to Ms. Long and see if that's possible. I know she was going to open it up and do a lottery system for the number of students that they can bring, so we can do the same.
And then the other presentations that you made, are they for all the schools as well?
Yes, except for the NASA trip because it was
Right,
only
right.
those students.
Right, okay, thank you.
Questions, comments? Okay to move these forward? Fabulous, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Now we come to public input. Yes, Mrs. DeSanto.
Big surprise.
Pia DeSanto, Upper Euclid. I have a question about, am I supposed to say what township at this meeting, Tim? I have a question about the project Lead the Way with the computer integrated manufacturing course. I was just wondering how you chose that over, say, for example, the aerospace course that I've heard a lot of the kids asking questions about and were interested in.
I would be happy to answer. We didn't actually choose it over. Our plan is to introduce aerospace as our fourth course for them. So rather than causing a budget request that would be in excess of the number that we're currently asking for, we plan to phase that in the following year.
Oh, great.
So thank you for the question.
Any other questions from the public? Thank you, Mrs. DeSanto. Moving on to our program information. We have Mr. Daney.
So Mr. Daney is going to share with us a very prudent plan put together by the science department. As we all know, science labs and science equipment are very expensive budgetary items. So Eric worked closely with his department to present to us a plan for updating labs over 5 years so that we could be fiscally responsible in replenishing equipment.
There's not really a whole lot more that I need to add to that. Really, it was an ongoing conversation over the course of the past year and a couple of months as to the condition of some of the equipment that we have. And really, as any science teacher knows, purchasing some of these bigger ticket items can cripple not only just the science department for years, but could also cripple a building budget if it had to be a mass purchase. So instead of doing that, we'd like to present the opportunity to do this over the course of 5 years, which would require a substantial inventory of what we do have in its condition, so that we can update to make sure that our students have high-quality laboratory experiences, but also safe experiences as well as they move forward.
Who's going to be doing the inventory?
We actually have 4 out of the 5 secondary buildings have already taken care of that inventory. We are just waiting on one building to finish that up.
Where would the funds come from? General fund or capital?
So the funds, the reason we're doing over 5 years is so that I could be prudent and support some of this replenishing of equipment. The buildings have some funds that they allot for science equipment, but would never be sufficient amount if we needed a big purchase. So that's why we're looking at this over a number of years, so that the curriculum budget as well as building budgets can support what's needed.
Depending on what the equipment is
Yes.
you're buying, it could come out of capital funds.
guess my point is, if it's that outdated, well, it's that outdated. But if we need it, why not make it a 3-year plan?
Well, because I think it's prudent to take a look at what we have, evaluate its lifetime, and find what we have, because sometimes we have things and we're not sure that we have them. So that if we take an inventory, we know what we have, we assess the age and the usefulness of that equipment, then we can reevaluate whether it needs to be 3 or 5 years. We decided on 5 years because that way, if there are things that we just purchased that may need to be replenished on a cycle basis, so maybe we can't afford it all at once 1 year, but we'll get some for West this year, some for East this year, some for STEM the next year, so that we have a vision of what that looks like. We have to have that information. So for right now, it's 5 years. I don't know. I don't think anyone would be, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't speak to that, Mr. Davey, that folks would be crippled in terms of what their course offerings would be with a 5-year plan.
No, but if we want to make it 3, we would be perfectly happy to do it in a shorter amount of time as well.
I'm sure you would be.
Well, I would suggest you leave it 5, but we can move it up if we need it, as opposed to.
Why don't we see what the list is?
Exactly.
And go from there. Very good. Thank you.
So the middle school math program, Mrs. Sullivan, Karen Sullivan is our math curriculum leader, and Karen is going to update us on how the Big Ideas math program, this isn't Karen's presentation, but I did want to show everybody this little pamphlet. So this came out of an article from Kaplan, and it talks about old things in math versus new things in math, and how we have to wrap our heads around what it is exactly that's changing and what the new habit is that we have to adopt. So we made copies of this pamphlet so that folks would have them in their buildings. We're going to be sending them home with the in the buildings where we have a new math program, so the elementary and the middle level programs, just to help with some parent transition to new terminology. So I just did want to call that to your attention. I'm sorry, Karen, I'm preempting you here.
Actually, I'm going to use that article in our Wednesday early dismissal meeting, was already planned as part of it for the teachers to discuss.
Wunderbar.
As far as Big Ideas goes in middle school, I think that every teacher would agree with me, and I sent out an email asking for their input, that the materials are excellent, the activities are great. We are struggling in areas in filling gaps, as the elementary is. The older the kids are, the bigger the gaps, so we're experiencing that also. Also, what happened for us is the fact that we lost courses. So we went from having 3 courses in grade 7 to having 2 courses in grade 7, which is compounding the issue of the gaps between the students and creating some struggles for those teachers. MathX has been a wonderful support, as you mentioned, Dr. McNeil. It's been a great support in helping keep the students on track and helping the students fill in those gaps who are struggling behind. And I think every teacher would agree with that also. The trouble is those spots are all filled right now. So we don't have much room to put many. We can put a few more students in, but most of those spots are filled. The professional development that's been going on with Big Ideas has been, I would say, okay, not great to this point. And Jen and Kelly have been working very hard to get it to a great level. The thing that was great was we were just very fortunate to have Dr. Laurie Boswell, one of the authors of Big Ideas, come out and do lesson studies at both schools, and she was phenomenal. She absolutely got into the differentiation, which we needed help with, into how she fills the gaps and how she handles the gaps. She taught sample lessons for grade level for teachers observing. And we're going to have another one of those lesson studies, and I sincerely hope it's Dr. Boswell who comes back again to do that, because that was outstanding. The time to collaborate with the staff has been great. In November, On November 4th, we had a day where both schools were together in the afternoon, and every teacher told me they got so much out of that planning time, looking ahead at the chapters, working on the common assessments. One of the struggles we've had is that the assessments that came with the textbook are too long to be completed in a period, so teachers have had time to sit together and decide which items should be deleted and replaced or just deleted to make the assessment workable within period. I will say that these materials have made me the best Algebra 1 teacher I've ever been. And I could not be happier as a person who's teaching this class this year, and I've spoken to many of my 8th grade colleagues who feel the same way. And I think the difference for us in 8th grade is that we still have our 3 courses. And we have that kids split up into 3 levels, and we're implementing at 1 level this year. Next year when we implement with 1A at the 2nd level, we'll have to see how it goes. But I walk around my classroom and I hear kids speaking more deeply about mathematics, talking to each other about what they're learning. They're taking more responsibility for their own learning of the mathematics. It's not the teacher standing at the board doing everything. It's here's an activity. Let's go out and explore that activity. And what we had to do as teachers was teach the kids how to learn that way. And that's becoming a lot easier. The activities I did today, the kids got right into them. It's no longer, you didn't show me how to do this. It's that they know they need to get in there and try something and work together and come up with ideas and use that perseverance thought to work on these goals and these activities that they have. The activities are wonderful. They lead the kids right into the learning, and then the next day we cement that and make sure that they got it. It's a challenge. It's a lot of work. Teachers are putting in a lot of hours to make it work, but I think that it will pay off. I think that our lack of courses in grades 6 and 7 having gone to 2 instead of 3, I think that'll work in 5 years. I think right now, as we're trying to fill in all the gaps, that's a hard thing to push in there. So I think that we need to maybe look at that. If we could get back some of the levels of the courses for grades 6 and 7, that would be great. And I don't know if you have any questions for me.
The Wednesday early dismissals, are the math teachers in each grade level going to be able to collaborate? Is that the plan for their professional development?
So at the middle level, if you teach math, you're in a math group. The one variable here is grade 6. That grade 6 is being pulled for other professional development other than math at times.
The grade 7 and 8 is also going to grade level meetings. So okay, so they are, okay. So would that be helpful, Karen? Absolutely.
Are they to?
Absolutely. They valued that time so much. I mean, I think Jen got the feedback, but the feedback I got from the teachers was because they were able to look forward to the next 2 or 3 chapters discussed together, how to implement it, review the assessments, and make sure that the assessment was lined up with what we were doing. One of the questions I did ask Dr. Boswell when she was here was she the author of the assessments? And she said no, the assessments were not written by the textbook author. So she actually said she tweaks those assessments herself and doesn't use them exactly as they are, which was great information for us to have. We feel a little bit better about doing some of that. There's great questions on there, but there's times where we're like, they don't need 6 of this one, we want to shorten that to 3 or 4 of that one. And for us to be able to sit together and do that is just very worthwhile.
And did she share some of her knowledge and expertise at doing that with this program with you?
She shared that she thought the tests were more designed to be completed in an hour period rather than a 46-minute period, which is why we were having some struggles. Some students are finishing just fine. She did say that she changes, she said she likes to change the questions and put in teachers' names in her buildings and make it more fun for the kids that way. But she does also just sometimes entirely change a question around that she just feels doesn't fit with that particular.
So having her was a real benefit.
It was an absolute benefit. She also gave us, she calls it her green sheet, which is a sheet to fill in gaps, and she actually sent it to Kelly and sent it to me, and I'm sending it to all the teachers. so that kids have a little prompting sheet if they're stuck on something to go back and maybe fill in a gap that they didn't have. Doesn't mean teacher's not going to have to help them, but they've got something to start to use. Her demonstration of a lesson was great, just how to go through it, what her pacing was, how to handle it. It was excellent.
So to Karen's suggestion, Linda Brooke, our 6th grade level leader, Dave Weidlich, 7, where's Deb? Marnie? Oh, there's Deb. So if math folks were not part of the grade level PD, I mean, if they're asking to be part of the math folks so that they can really help each other collaborate with this new math program, do you see any? I mean, even in the context of what we're doing with formative assessment, and everything you're doing will be devoted to the math program and implementing it effectively, so it seems that if this is what teachers want, this is what they're asking for.
You talked about changing the assessments and offering them as a, do you do that as a building?
As a team. As a team, what we like to do, that's why it's important if we can get together both grade levels, both schools, so that we can alter the assessments at both schools. We're still giving the same assessment.
Okay.
The agreed
That's
assessment
my
is,
question.
yeah.
I think she's talking about team as a grade level team, not
Yeah, that's
team
fine. I
in the
just wanted to
building.
clarify.
Right, yeah, team is a grade level team, but with both schools being together. That's why that Wednesday time would be valuable if we could have, everyone.
And at the elementary level, is it the same?
That's what they're doing at the elementary level. We took them out of the K-12 department meetings
So
and
they're
now they're
just
meeting
all
monthly.
fourth graders?
Yes,
across the-
monthly.
Thank you.
And then to Karen's point of the levels, so what happened at the middle level is the same thing at the elementary level. So now you have a mixed group of students rather than a level 1, a level 2, a level 3. And so again, to Karen's point, the gaps are more apparent when you have a mixed group of students.
Okay, and seeing no other questions, thank you, that was really great to hear all of that. And we now have an elementary math update, Mrs. Byrne.
Math, and more math. Can't get enough of it. All right, my update is on Singapore Math and Focus at the elementary level. We have completed all of our parent universities. Reminder, that was taking all 10 elementary schools, sistering them up and pairing them up. So we had 5 parent universities, parent meetings at night. The attendance for both of those, for all 5 of those, I think was very well attended. There were lots of parents who came to learn more about the program. We talked quite a bit about, obviously, why Math and Focus? Why do we need a new program? Many parents didn't understand or didn't know about the Common Core state standards. So the question was, why can't we just keep the program we had? And with some of them hearing more about the Common Core and the expectation, what the questions will look like, how are they different than what our students are used to right now. For some of the parents, that definitely explained that part of their question, why did we need a new math program? Some current concerns that were brought up, or questions that were brought up during the meetings, were obviously implementation. We jumped in with all 6 grade levels. Many parents, once they found out that we have a short turnaround for the new PSSA test that started in spring 2015, that was another thing they didn't know. It's not like we had 6 years to start something in kindergarten, roll it through and see how it goes. We have a very short window at which we have to turn this all around. There were some questions about professional development and how we'll proceed with that. There were questions about homework. How much homework should be parents seeing? What should that homework look like? What should parents do if they can't help their children? And there are various things that they can help do if they want to go to Think Central. If the kid just can't do their homework, just write a note to the teacher saying the student didn't understand, and that student will get more help. There are also questions, as Dr. Neal talked about, is the test, those novel items, which are those unfamiliar situation problems. We've had many students across the district, probably most students, struggling with those. We're just not there at that rigor yet and that expectation. So for some grade levels, not all grade levels, we've had to remove those items from the grading process. The students will still do those items as part of the learning experience, So we pulled them out of their grade. They need to learn to do those problems. So we can't just say, oh, we're not doing them at all, because then they still won't know how to do them next year. So we pulled those off, and they will then go be put back into the transition with the group that's coming out of first grade, and every year as they go, then we'll put those gaps back. We did talk about the transition gaps. It was very alarming, obviously, to parents to hear that some grade levels are only keeping 40 to 50% of the content that they taught students in prior years. That is a significant change. So for some parents, that was a real eye-opener. Also, how does that impact pacing? We are obviously not pacing as fast, even Karen can attest that at the middle level either, because we have to do so much gap filling. That is not the programs we purchased, though. That is the new standards. We have to fill those gaps. It's not as if we have a choice. So that's not something that has to do with Math in Focus or Big Ideas Math. That has to do with the new standards, and that's why we have to fill those gaps. Luckily, we have the resources to do that, but it does take time. For instance, the one example we talked about is third grade. Well, third grade, the new expectation is students will do multiplication 6 through 9. Our students didn't learn 0 through 5 last year in second grade. That's a huge transition gap, so we have to stop the pacing wheel and say, okay, for X amount of days, we have to learn multiplication 0 through 5 before we can proceed with 6 through 9. Things like that, we just have to stop. If students aren't up to speed on fractions, they didn't learn this, they didn't learn that, we have to stop, teach all those things before we jump into the chapter, or we're going to get bogged down even further. Other thing that parents had questions about were grades, and how will this impact students' grades. They talked about challenging students who need to be challenged. They talked about struggling students, having support for the students and the teachers. They talked about tracking. From what I could at least tell, a lot of parents did not feel that the program seemed to be an issue. They liked the program. They feel once we get through the transition, we'll have a good math program. It's just the implementation, the training, and all those things that come along with such a significant transition were the issues. It was nice to hear that everyone was there for the same purpose, and that was to help our children learn and understand mathematics better, so that was nice that we all agreed upon that. There were some FAQs that will be responded to. A couple of them dealt with transition to 6th grade. How will that work? Additional support in the classrooms for math. Parents' access to materials to help children with gaps. So like Dr. Neal says, we're giving them access to the prior year's textbooks and the videos and interactivities and those things, so the parents, if they so choose, can go in there and look at that stuff. They talked about Think Central access. Some parents didn't know their students had Think Central access. They've had it since October. They did not know about that. So we got that word out there even more. Every parent was to receive a letter, but some it seemed did not. And children will have Think Central access during the summer. So that is a definite plus. We talked about the PSSA and how that's changing and the different implementation. We are considering, based on parent feedback, having at least one more parent-university type meeting. Some parents were just interested in learning more about how do students learn using the new program. What's this whole thing about bar modeling? How do the number bonds work and things like that? I did show them examples of it. They loved it. They enjoyed doing math, and they want to learn more. Very exciting. All right. One thing that we're doing to communicate that we've been doing since the beginning of the year is in schools' monthly newsletters. I will provide the building with an article that they can put in their newsletter. So the first one dealt with Singapore's mathematics framework and how that works and how the program is built around that. The second one did deal with Think Central, so parents were given a letter in October they were supposed to get. They had a newsletter article, and still in November, we had parents who didn't know about Think Central, so at least we got that out there. The most recent article dealt with homework. Parents really felt that other parents who weren't able to attend Parent University really needed to know about homework, and it's okay to just say you don't know how to do it. And if you can't help your child, that's okay too. Or what are the resources available if you choose to help your child? What can you use for those resources? Also, for professional development plans for the teachers, I will get together summaries of the plans to give to the teachers and the principals. The principals can put those in their newsletters. For the one in December, that will be too late for the newsletters, so we'll do an email blast to the parents to let them know about professional development, also, and other ones to let them know about articles in the newsletter. Wednesday early dismissals, Dr. McNeil referenced, is the first thing we need to do is talk about things central and give students access to the prior year. So students in grades 2 through 5, first grade, the gaps just aren't there, so we don't have as an issue. But starting in second grade, we'll give parents access to the prior year's math and focus materials, so they can go in and look at the student addition, they can look at the interactivities that kids can do on their own, they'll have access to the virtual manipulatives, and the math background videos. So if there's something that there's a gap, they can refer back to that. Next thing is a survey that we'll get about how are teachers using Think Central Access, how are they communicating with parents, how are they letting parents know of their students' test results, what's the time between tests and retests, and tell us more about the reteaching that occurs between tests and retests. Other things we definitely want to talk about during these meetings will be, like Dr. McNeil said, is reviewing and evaluating, discussing upcoming assessments. Do we see issues? Do we need to add items? What exactly do we need to do? All right. Also, what are the specifics of partial credit? It was brought up in parent university meetings that some teachers are giving partial credit and some teachers are not giving partial credit. So we all need to get on board as to giving partial credit and what does that look like. Also, creating retests. If we're going to give students retests, the teachers would feel much more comfortable if they were all giving a consistent retest as they're all giving a consistent test. So we need to work on that. And also creating quizzes, which would build into those grades, and we'd be able to see as the learning is occurring where we're missing some things and what we need to do. Other things we need to look at in the future are definitely the progressions for the Common Core state standards in math. So why is what I'm doing in third grade so important to fourth grade, which is really important come again in seventh grade? And why did you do what you did in second grade support what we need to do in third grade? So everybody sees how they feed into that. Another thing we need to talk about are the standards for mathematical practices. Those 8 things, problem solving, persevering, looking for regularity, using tools, and all that information. Professional development, like Dr. McNeil said, we talked about early dismissals, looking at assessments, creating the retest, creating quizzes if we have time. How do we give partial credit? What should that look like? And those types of things to get people on the same page. Full days of training. We have talked with the trainers, the head trainers at Hugh Mifflin Harcourt to look at. In January, we would like to do the whole bar modeling and the visualization. So for the younger grade, that would be the number bonds and what does that look like. And then starting in second grade, dealing with the bar modeling. We also would like the trainers to deal with upcoming chapter assessments, to deal with different questioning strategies, so that the students are more hearing those types of questions. They also the company talked a lot about teachers need to be able to look at work and determine partial understanding. So can we get some anchor papers from our students so we can look at their levels of understanding? Also look at the levels of questions. Because the questions, as we talked about in prior presentations, have basically 3 levels of questioning. First is the skill. Can you apply the skill? Do you know the skill? The second type is application. All right? Can you apply what you know to a similar situation? But then there's that novel situation which has been causing us the issue, which is that, yes, I can apply, but this is a situation I haven't seen before, and now I don't know what to do, which is a different level of rigor than what our students have had in before. And also content knowledge that we might need to help teachers with. There's something coming up. This is different than what we talked before. Do you need support in understanding this content? Also filling the transition gaps. How do we do that? How do you use the transition maps and all that stuff which deals with those components of the program we have, just get to be better users of those. And that gives you, and I'll give you more detail about that once we find out from the company exactly if we can do that. And as Dr. Marino said, they also dealt with, what?
1 minute.
All right, fast, turn. All right, another thing we've been working on, Pat McGlone and I have been working on, is a video, Why Math in Focus, and our students learning mathematics in their classrooms. So Pat videotaped me, talking about the program, why we chose it, what we expect, and she's been going to some classrooms to teacher volunteers, as we call them, and see what the students are doing, right? And we did not pay the children ahead of time to perform for us. And any other ideas and then that will get loaded onto the website so parents can see it. Differentiated instruction, there are some questions about that. How does that work? We do have transition resources that reference different materials that can be used. This is a work in progress. Teachers are trying different approaches to see what works best for them and for their students. So that is ongoing. As we know, teachers are very proficient in, even advanced, in doing differentiated instruction within their classrooms for reading. Now what we need to do is make the adjustment to how does that work in math. And that's, like I said, is a work in progress. These are examples of things that I've seen in classrooms myself of how teachers are differentiating instruction. Students take a pretest, then there's transition resources, available to teachers to go back to prior grade levels to help fill the gaps. There's flexible grouping, which is small students based on need, which is very similar to how we do with reading instruction and reading groups. So that can happen basically at any time from the beginning of the lesson, even if the conceptual part, if the student isn't getting the concept, hold a couple students, start moving the other students into pictorial and abstract, and then move everybody over when they're ready.
Okay, Mrs. Byrne, we're going to have to cut you short, Bill.
Okay.
To be continued next month.
Sure.
Right.
One quick question though, Kelly. When do you think the FAQs will be out on the website for people?
I'd like to say tomorrow, but I can't.
But
I mean, I'm working on them, I read them over, we're trying to categorize them in.
So yes, definitely, Mrs. Simonelli, we will have them out before the winter break. Absolutely. That's reasonable. Okay, the next item on our program information agenda is our middle school. Scheduling and curricular adjustments, Mr. Ross.
We getting an introduction, or should we just go?
That was your
We
introduction.
get 30 minutes, right? We have 30 minutes?
We have 30 minutes.
We'll try and do it in 29. All right, good afternoon, folks.
Remember
Thanks
to take a breath for questions.
Okay, 26. We're very pleased and proud to be here. This is a great opportunity that we have, we feel. We appreciate the fact that the model that the district's moving forward with and alleviating not only our population sizes, but also, I feel, creating a school that is going to bring all of the kids in the district together at the 6th grade center. And it's going to be our job to try to bring some continuity to that as the kids move up to a 7-8 building. So we're very, very excited about that opportunity. Nick and I, in addition to sharing a brain, often meet together. Our assistant principals meet with us. We've had a number of get-togethers as administrative teams. Both of us have also held building level meetings where we've tried to get input from our staff. Basically, throw spaghetti against the wall kind of meetings where people just bring in ideas. We gathered information, put them together, presented it to the people that came to the meetings, and just got feedback. What do you like about this idea? What do you not like about this idea? So as you can imagine, opening a forum that way really brings a lot of different suggestions. If you're asking the people who it affects directly on a daily basis for input, you can guarantee you're going to get a substantial amount of input. So what we've tried to do is to take some of that input that we got from our staff that we really appreciated that they would give to us, and try to make that work in a 7-8 building and try to create a program, as I said, that provides continuity from what the kids are going to get in 6th grade, but also helps the transition as they move on to high school. We feel like we've identified a few areas that as a school we need to improve, as 2 schools that we need to improve, and we think we're going to be able to address that. But we've looked at several things, and we've thrown a lot of different ideas out there. We looked at, trying to do something like a modified block. Fortunately, it doesn't work with the CBA, so we've tried to, tweak that and go in a different direction to something that we think is going to create a little bit of variety for both the kids and the staff that doesn't completely do what a modified block does, but does present opportunities for doing things not necessarily differently, but in looking at things in a different way from what we've done in the past. So without further ado, I think I covered everything. We're going to move on to the next slide, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nick.
Okay, like John said, we're very, very excited to have this opportunity because it gives us our first chance in a very long time to take a look at the middle level again and take a look at what can be done at the middle level. It's very simple in terms of philosophy. The philosophy is key. Every child moves, whether it's below basic, basic, proficient, or advanced. Everything we're trying to do with this model addresses every child, every subgroup, every facet of where we need to make improvements, where we need to grow, even where things are going well. That's the idea here. We want every student making at least a year's worth of growth from their baseline, whatever that baseline is. Again, if that's below basic, we're moving from there. If it's basic, we're moving from there. We've noticed in our PBAS scores that even our advanced kids aren't making enough growth. So we have to address that, we have to target that, and we have to hit that hard. So, how do we do it? We had some prerequisites for setting the different plans in place, especially when we looked at what's going to fit with our model. So first, targeted, laser-driven, focused instruction in data-defined core curricular areas. We have to look at absolutely everything we're doing academically and be able to hit it with either what we're doing and how we're doing it now, or how we can do it within a new model. In order to do that, technology has to be paramount. It's going to help us engage students. That way we can take an actual hard integrated look at facilitating knowledge, construction, building, and promoting collaboration both in and out of the classroom. These are the things that the elementary program is morphing towards. It's what the 6th grade center is being built upon, and it's what we're going to make sure we do when those kids walk through the doors of our 2 middle level buildings. So now we're going to get a little bit deeper into how we're going to do those things. Like John said, from a specific standpoint, there are certain things that would have been nice to include, but you can't fit everything. You can't make something perfect. What I think it does do, and for those of you familiar with the middle school schedule, what you'll see is that a lot of the things since 1997 when middle school opened, we've had to make changes, we've had to add, we have to try to bend things to make fit that didn't necessarily fit, but we had to do them because there was a need. I think this lets us take a step back, reorganize, and actually make all of those fits a lot better so it fits together like a nice jigsaw puzzle. You'll see that with our next piece. Now, very briefly, just to show you a visual illustration of where we want to be, and this is targeted off of PBAS, which I know everyone in this room is familiar with. Right now, we have students that are in quadrant 2 up top there. Those are kids who are high achievers, but they're not showing growth. We have kids in quad 3 still. Those kids are lower achieving kids, they're not making enough growth. What our model intends to do is to put kids into categories 1 and categories 4, and eventually, down the line, hopefully all into category 1. That's ultimately our goal. That's something we're not willing to compromise on, and everything you're going to see here today over the next couple of slides is illustrated and reinforced by one simple fact. What is best for kids? What is going to best address the academic, social, and emotional needs of students?
Okay, so just a brief summary of the new schedule, and you saw a little bit of this earlier. We're now at 48-minute periods, so we're going to add a little bit more time, not significant, but if you add it up over the course of the year, it does add up. Trying to add some our reach activities, making it a part of our lunch. Right now we have 3 lunches, 1 for each grade. If you take away a 6th grade and we still, and if we were to just keep it to 2 lunches, it really doesn't help us in terms of our crowded cafeterias. So one of our goals, and one of the things that we heard from our staff was that we really should try to find a way to keep 3 lunches, even though we're only going to have 2 grades, because that will decrease the number of kids in a lunch period at any given time, and thus making the atmosphere in there a little more palpable for the folks that have to supervise it, and for the kids too. Give the kids more space, maybe even down the road give us opportunities to do some of the things the high schools are doing with creating different areas for kids instead of just the standard cafeteria tables. So if we make the lunches a part of a class period, it allows us to do that. Okay, so the kids would have lunch, and then the rest of that period would be their reach or advisory period or whatever, all the myriad of different things that we use reach for right now. It will be a part of that period. You'll see it visually in just a moment. Core classes are going to rotate. Encore classes stay the same where they are. So on any given day, the kids would begin to recognize their schedule according to core numbers. Core 1, Core 2, Core 3, Core 4. My Core 1 might be science, Nick's Core 1 might be social studies. And on a particular day, Core 1 is the first period of the day. Then the next day, Core 1 moves down to a period later. Okay? Talk to any teacher in the middle school, they'll tell you sometimes it's really great to see kids at different times of the day, rather than at the same time. Rather than always seeing the kids' first period where some of the kids are a little tired when they come in the morning, right? Or there's kids that are chronically late, and we have a lot of issues with truancy, or kids that don't get there on time, they're always missing the same class period. How about the kids that leave early for sports and athletics and activities? They're always missing their 8th period class. So if we create a system where we can rotate those class periods, now the kids aren't always missing the same class periods whenever something takes place. Okay, and again, you'll see that in just a moment. World language falls into that core category. Becomes the 5th core, okay, in terms of the schedule. Encores all become cycle courses. Right now, some of our encores are cycle courses, some of them are marking period courses. This does two things. It increases the number of days kids are in any given cycle course, in any given encore course. The courses that are marking period courses right now, the kids are only there for 1/4 of the year because there's 4 marking periods. If they become a cycle course, they'll be there 2 out of 6 days. Kids will then be in that encore class for 1/3 of the year. So it's increasing the amount of time that we get. Again, something we hear from our teachers. We don't get a chance to get to our whole curriculum because of all the crazy interruptions that you give us, Mr. Principal. We want more time with the kids. This gives them more time with the kids. The other thing it accomplishes is schedule-wise, and my assistant principals would vouch for this because they do our schedule. It's very difficult to fit square pegs into round holes with our schedule. Because when you have one encore period, that's cycle days, and the other encore period, that's by marking period, you've got things moving in 2 different directions. And we've got, as Nick was talking about, kids that have various needs. If we can only, for instance, kids that get curriculum support for certain cycle days, if we only have 1 class period to pick, that increases the size of those classes. It limits the options that we have for where we put those kids. If we now have 2 class periods, 2 encore class periods to pick from for putting those kids into those critical support classes, it increases our options. It's better for the kids, it's better for the teachers. 7th grade. Right now, as many of you may know, 7th grade, our English program is divided into a writing and literature program. And then magically, when they get to 8th grade, they all become just English students. Okay, and we know, if you know the history of the district, there's reasons why that took place. What we're proposing doing is taking those writing teachers, as we've heard multiple times about our MathX program, about how that intervention helps those students. We want to create essentially a writing program that does the same thing. All right, I'll get more into that in just a moment. And then digital information technology, similar to what's going on in the 6th grade center, is going to become an integrated program, and we have a whole slide on that in just a minute. Next one, please. All right, so here's the schedule as I was describing to you earlier. Just a proposed schedule. This is the same slide that Dr. McNeil showed you earlier, just to give you a visual idea of what we're talking about. Okay, a homeroom period in the morning, and then they go through their day, and you can see 5, 6, and 7 are regular class periods that have both a lunch and advisory for the kids built in. Okay, more room to do things. More room for kids to do things like take their lunch up to a teacher's classroom, which happens all the time now. We have teachers willingly giving up time during their day to meet with kids during lunch periods, and then by the time the kids get their lunch and they get up to the teacher's classroom, they have 10 minutes left. Well, now if there's an advisory period right after that, they can just roll it right into that next thing, and that gives them more time to do things like that. Okay? Next one, please. All right, so here's what you see when I was describing the rotation, as I was saying earlier. So in this example, on the class schedule on A day, this student has language arts as their core 1. Okay? On the next day, their core 1 moves 1 period down. You see it skips over that encore class. Thank you, Nick. So it actually moves down to 3rd period. The next day it moves down to 4th period. The next day it skips over lunch and moves down to 6th period. Okay? So kids, again, will begin to recognize their classes by core number. Teachers will post rotation schedules. We have them all over the room, all over the school, that show kids the order. Today, is this letter day, and you'll go to these core classes in this order. Okay? Sounds confusing to us right now, but I've seen it. When kids live it, when kids are doing this every day, it becomes second nature. They adjust to it, and it becomes second nature for what they're doing on a regular basis. Okay? You want to take questions? Sure. Go ahead.
Is there a reason Encores don't rotate?
Yes, mainly because we share a lot of Encore teachers with other buildings. We do not share core teachers. We share several Encore teachers with both the high schools and between the two middle schools. So if you're locked in to particular times of the day, if you begin to move those, then the teacher that I share with East, who's normally with me in the morning, if their classes move to the afternoon, then I would be, messing up what they're trying to do at the high school as well. So yes, that's an unfortunate side effect of sharing the folks.
Can we, just a suggestion, let us get through the whole presentation first, in case we answer those questions, because I know there's going to be a lot of them, but, and then we'll field all of them, if that's okay. Is that all right, Dr. McNeil?
Of course, Dr.
Okay. Okay, next. All right, so here's a more detailed description of the writing program that we're talking about doing. Okay, creating a program where we call these teachers literacy intervention teachers, LIT for short. They're going to provide explicit ELA instruction. Look, I'm going to just simplify all this. I mean, you can read all this, but there's nothing I hate more than somebody that reads off their slides when they're doing the presentation. We've identified writing, and I think if you talk to any of the middle school folks, they'll agree, as an area where there seems to be a lack of growth. We're showing growth across the board in our reading. We're showing tremendous growth in both our reading and our math program. Our writing teachers in 7th grade are doing a phenomenal job. But then as the kids move on to 8th grade, that system of support vanishes. We have kids in our writing program in 7th grade that don't necessarily need it, that are doing well, but they're sitting through that program. And yet we also have kids in that same class that are struggling, that are having very difficult times. So if we can target those kids and create a program for those kids that extends over 2 years, both 7th and 8th grade, now as they move through our program, they still have that system of support in place. If we created a model similar to our RTII model, where we constantly progress monitor these kids and assess how they're doing, and then kids can move in and move out, similar to our MathX, similar to our reading program. Our reading teachers do a fantastic job of progress monitoring kids and putting key data on every single student and being able to support any decisions that are made with parents and administration.
And on both ends of that spectrum, we have the scenario in place already. The academic advisor in both buildings is already monitoring the math data, working with the MathX teachers, working with our math specialists, same thing across reading. This applies on the advanced level as well. The kids we talked about earlier who aren't making the growth through the advanced category, these people target them as well. The cycle-based Encore rotation also allows flexibility in creating and implementing new ideas with that as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a pull-in or a push-out or anything like that. There's multiple ways to address it and hit it. Let's say there's 10 kids in the building who have a heavy interest in blogging, and they have an idea for a blog. These are advanced kids. We've identified them as kids who haven't been making growth, but they have this common area of interest. Boom, we find a 2-day cycle within one of those Encore blocks. We plug them in. One of the literacy intervention specialists comes in, works with them. It's almost as if you've created a minor mirror course to actually work along with Splinter Skills and what they want to do with writing. Millions of ideas we could have with this, and our teachers are going to be the experts to implement.
Okay.
With technology, 6th Grade Center is taking and implementing an integrated approach. There is no question, it's the year 2014, we have to start integrating technology into our core and Encore programs. It is not an option anymore. We spend a lot of time communicating with other districts, not only across America, across the entire world, via Twitter and chat platforms. Integration is the key. That is where and how things are going to continue working. Our idea is to take DIP, pull it out of the Encore rotation and cycle, and actually have them start working as specialists as well with the core teams, with the houses if we're working with a house model, in order to support, collaborate, facilitate, and engage in an authentic environment. If you take a look at the JPEG, and like John said, we're not going to read them to you, a lot of the way we're doing things now is still sage on the stage, not guide on the side. We sit the kids down, we park and bark, we show them how to do a spreadsheet. The curriculum itself is all important. It's what we need to be doing. We have to teach those skills, but we need to be teaching those skills authentically. How do you do that? You get the people in the room who are making the decisions and putting the curriculum into place. You put them together with the experts in that area, and then you let the kids go to work as well, because the bottom line is the kids know more than we do in the large majority of these things right now. So, you could have a lesson that I saw today. I walked by one of our DIT classrooms where they were working on using Excel to do averages, okay? Totally non-related to anything else happening in the core curriculum, in any of the core areas. That same lesson could have easily been integrated into a phys ed class, a mathematics class, a social studies class, a science class, different experiments and things. This has to be done, and it can be done. We just have to actually now take the time to use it to implement into this kind of model now.
Is that the last one?
I think that's the last one.
Yeah, okay, now questions. Yes?
Two questions for you. Watching the high school students and how hungry they come into my fourth period class, is there a reason why we're having lunches 4, 5, 6, and 7 versus 4, 5, 6, where they could eat a little earlier? Because I don't imagine that the middle school students are any less hungry than the high school kids. I don't think they're eating breakfast either.
No, I think the only reason we did that is that's the current setup. Our current setup is 5, 6, 7, so I think we just... No, it's a great idea. Yeah, it's a great idea, because actually the way we have it now, we give our last lunches our 7th grade. We let those kids have a snack in the middle of the day to get them through to that last lunch. So yeah, that's a great idea.
They're hungry.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Seventh period's really hard.
Your other question?
Second question I had for you was, Encore, since they're going from one marking period to a cycle, is there going to be rewriting a curriculum to allow for that? I mean, you're adding so much more.
Well, we certainly recognize, I mean, this is our rollout of our idea, but we certainly recognize that that's going to need to be a component of what we're going to do. Certainly, yeah, we would give them the opportunity the opportunity to look at their curriculum as it stands and see if there are things that they can do to either enrich it or add on to it, since they're going to have additional time with the kids, theoretically, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
For something like health and PE, how would that be additional time? Because I'm assuming it would go on a model kind of like Tom's, where
That's currently a cycle course, so that's not changing. That's just going to continue to be a cycle course. That's already a cycle course for us, so that would not change. It's the marking period course that are getting.
Isn't health a marking period course?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said.
Yeah, health is a marking period course, so that's 45 days. If you go to a cycle like that, health would meet probably once every 6 days.
Twice.
60 days.
60 days.
It would meet twice.
Yes.
Health would meet twice.
Yes.
And
Each
PE
one would be 2 out of 6 days.
And PE would meet twice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I was confused, thanks.
Yeah. No, it's confusing unless you are doing that every day. Yep.
Hi, I'm just trying to answer the questions that I know I'm going to get. Is there one, so there's 2 encore periods in the day. Does that mean 7th grade, all 7th grade has their encore during that 3rd period or whatever period? And all
Well, that's the other thing it gives us the opportunity to do. Right now, when we do scheduling, we have to say like 1st and 2nd period every day is 6th grade encore. We don't necessarily have to do that anymore. We can have encore periods that will have both grades. We will have encore periods that will be both 7th and 8th grade going to encore. It's not necessarily going to be locked in. It's going to give us more freedom to combine those. Otherwise, if we just did it as we do it now, there would only be 4 periods of encore a day. There would be 2 7th and 2 8th, right?
And specifically what that also does, which those of you who are familiar with the middle level, it balances what happens within encores. So instead of having the 43-kid phys ed class and a 7-kid health section on the flip side to that, or an 8-kid family consumer class, it's actually going to allow us to balance everything within the core area.
So I'm thinking of choir because they have so many kids. If they have 3 opportunities, because there's 6 days and each section meets twice, right? So they have 3 opportunities to have a section and they have 200 kids. Does that mean they'll have 70 kids in a section that will meet twice a cycle because there's only that 1 period available?
There'll be more periods available. They'll have opportunities to take that larger class and divide it over 2 periods. It won't be as locked in as she is now when she needs to do it.
I'm not understanding.
To sit down and to show the course schedule right now, I think is beyond the scope of what we want to do. We've run a mock schedule already within the current confines of what our staffing is and our existing courses from the Encore level, and it fits. It works. Those questions, I understand, but we'll be here for 45 minutes if we try to specifically answer that one. I think that we should have that as a separate conversation to kind of look at that.
Because right now, there's basically 12 periods of, say, 7th grade encores. Because there's 2 periods, 6 days of the cycle. And now it would be 6 periods.
More periods. There's going to be more actual class periods of 7th grade encore. We're going to be able to spread that over more of the day, because now there's 2 periods that are only 6th grade now, right?
Right.
Well, now those 2 periods are free, so we're going to be able to use those periods for
So
encore.
that schedule was just somebody's
That was just
schedule.
one particular kid.
Got it.
That was just one particular kid.
Understood.
Yes.
How would the blitz be decided? Is it all
Great
the
question.
working teachers, or is it?
I mean, our thinking is that these would be desirable positions that people would vie for, because this is, from my opinion at least, this is an opportunity to do some real integrated work with colleagues, but also opportunities to see and affect change over a period of time.
So they would hopefully apply.
Yep.
And if for some reason they don't,
Then we'll fix it.
by.
We don't know yet.
Okay.
We haven't gotten that far. Haven't gotten that far yet.
We don't want to get that far until we know we're going that direction. Yes, 2 more, Dr. McNeil? We have time for 2 more?
We do, if
Okay.
you're quick.
Okay, go ahead.
The DIP teachers will be paired with houses or teams.
Or grade levels, depends, I mean, again, that part's not fleshed out yet. I think a
We're
lot
gonna
of
have
that's
2.
gonna.
We're gonna have 2 of them, so the logical thing would be to have them by grade level, but again, I don't wanna lock them into that because we wanna still have the flexibility to, allow them more than 1 grade level. So, again, haven't gotten that far yet, but I understand where you're going. Yes, Lauren?
There's obviously a shift with world language now, that you're going to go core class in the middle school. And I'm just making sure that you've looked at the numbers for students and for teachers, because you said that core teachers aren't shared, but we often have teachers
Yes.
going between middle schools and also between middle school and high school.
What we know already is we projected 3 years out. We projected what next year will look like. We projected the following year when you have the 6th grade, who's going to have a different model that's going to come to us. And we projected 1 more year out where that first group of elementary students who've been exposed to Rosetta Stone will then play into that model. So we know that that's going to be the most difficult area in terms of what staffing is going to look like, because there's going to be an increase in the number of kids taking language. That was going to happen anyway. What we've done by moving that into a core area is provided more flexibility. So whether or not that's going to mean down the line that people who aren't whole become whole, or we have to figure out a different way to share and to split, we don't know. But we know that's one of the things that's on the very high list of priorities of definitely going to be an issue because of the way we're segregated right now in terms of 0.4 here, 0.6 there, and between buildings.
Anybody else? So we don't need any action on this from the board level at this point, but will this be something that would even come to us, or would it?
No, this would
They just
not.
run with it.
We just need to make sure we change our program for PDE to a 7 and 8.
Okay, which we already got, we're doing that. That sounds really exciting, guys. A lot of thought went into it, and it sounds like you incorporated a lot of the suggestions you've heard, so.
So I'm going to ask Dr. Deglio, Mr. Ross, this may just need to settle. You gave a lot of information to us. If you would be willing perhaps to come back again if there are other questions or other.
Yeah, and we actually, all the middle level administrators are meeting over winter break. We have to come in one day over winter break, so we set ours up so that we're all coming in the same day, and we're going to spend half of that day working on this. So we will have more as soon as January.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. This has been so informative.
And so we missed a few items. Mr. Mulvey, if you don't mind, I guess we're
It
going
gets
to
pushed
update
back
tomorrow.
There's no way, I can't believe it. Again?
So, Mr. Mulvey, We put, you know, on the, you do give a monthly report at the board, but the teachers don't hear that. And so that's why I keep putting you on this agenda, because I think it's important for all of us.
I have an idea. I have 4 informational items. If I send them out as an email to everyone in this group, would that be?
That would be amazing.
Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Great suggestion. And I think that concludes our meeting. Thank you everyone for your attention and your time, and happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays, everyone.